In my recent video about variability, one of the games I used as an example is this one. And the first question people have after seeing this box is, how do you pronounce this? This is an ibex. The game is called Dance of Ibexes, and it's pretty easy to find, at least on Board Game Geek, because it is literally the only game with the word ibex in its title, as of the time of this recording. Unfortunately, it might be harder to find in the real world, as right now, as far as I know, it is published only from Korean publisher Playte and has not been licensed for publication elsewhere, but maybe that will come in time. Wanted to talk about the game anyway because it's a design by Wolfgang Kramer, whose work I generally love. I have been on a bit of a Kramer kick recently. I did an overview video of expeditions around the world. This is a new version of a game that came out in 1996 and that has the origins of its design dating back to the early 1970s. It's good stuff, fascinating design. And in the middle of 2023, did a write-up of Big Boss, which came out in 1994 originally. Yes, Wolfgang Kramer has been making games for a long time, and luckily they keep coming out in new versions so that people can find them on the marketplace. Possibly like this one in the future. We'll see. But for now, let's talk about how to play. Here are the components of Dance of Ibexes: a game board where everyone will play their pieces, a scoreboard to keep track of the points with your individual player marker, and a bag that contains 100 wooden tiles that are numbered 1 to 100. To set up the game, draw 4 at random and place them on the signpost on the mountain. I'll have the numbers face you so that you can read them more easily. Each player draws a hand of 6 tiles and stands them up so that only they see them. If I just drop them down right now, you will see the numbers. Typically we draw with 2 hands and then set them out from one hand, or just draw 6 in the lap. Your choice. But once everyone is ready, each turn you are going to pick a tile and play it. And everyone else is going to play a tile. Let's say we have a 4-player game. Now we reveal them, and in order from low to high, we add them to the board. And you add them onto the end of a row where that final tile at the end is lower than the tile you're placing. So right now 23 can only go here, 26 would follow, 67 could go after any of these 3, but you place it in the row that has the smallest difference. So 67, 97. There you go. Now, everyone plays again. I'm going to draw randomly just to make this, just for these examples. 22 is lower than everything here. You have to place a tile at the end of the row where it's higher and has the smallest difference, but 22 is lower, so you place that at the end of the row with the highest number. So 22 drops in here. And that can change what people have planned to do. 48, 58, 96. All right, draw again, or sorry, play again, but in my case, I'm drawing randomly. 7 goes here, 19 goes here, and now this ibex has fallen off the cliff. You have little pathways where you're climbing up the mountain. If there's no room for you, you're going to fall and take damage, and they score 7 points. In this case, this tile that they just played becomes the starting point for the next row. So you place that 19 on the signpost. The tiles in this row go to the player who played the 19, and they keep 1 or 2 of these and add them to the tiles that they have. They must take at least 1. They cannot take more than 2. They're going to choose tiles, of course, based on where they think they can play safely in the future and not fall off a cliff. Sometimes it's helpful to take more tiles. Sometimes it is not. All depends on the situation. All the other tiles are set aside out of play, and you can put them face down or face up as you desire. And you keep playing. So 4 more tiles. All right, 34. This person made a terrible choice. They get 5 points. This goes into this spot. It doesn't jump up above the highest row. It goes into the empty row that is higher but closest. Similar to how we're playing this. So, player who played the 34 keeps 1 or 2 of these. Everything else comes out. 37, 79, 90, and we continue. Now, as we're placing tiles, you may hit an eagle. You score points for that. You can imagine the eagle pecking at your head, bothering you, harassing you, pooping on you, whatever it is, but you would score those points. You're going to score points at the end of the row. This row is all eagles. It's terrible. Eventually, you'll place tiles and someone will have a tile in this row. Let's assume that it just looks like this for now. Actually, this would have been emptied. All right, let's say it's like this. Once a tile is in this row, on a turn, everyone is going to play 2 tiles. Okay, so you will jump to the end of a row more quickly. There's more danger playing 2 tiles because you don't know where everything's going to end up. You don't know already. You have some idea of where tiles will end up in rows, but you can't be sure. Now that everyone's playing 2, more things can happen between your tiles going out. This continues until all of this is covered. So if they end up like this is still visible, you continue to play 2. Still play 2, and now you no longer play 2, only 1. Okay. Now, you may not have great choices for what you want to play. Whatever you're going to play is going to send you over the edge, or you think it will, because maybe we're at this point where it's 37 here, and you've got a 43, all right, and this one is up here, and you've got a 25, and you're worried that no one is going to play between those numbers. You can, if you want, add 1, 2, or 3 points to your score to draw 1, 2, or 3 tiles from the bag before you choose your tile for the turn. You have to decide what you're spending all at once. I can't spend a point, draw a tile, spend a point, draw a tile. No, you must decide 1, 2, or 3 for 1, 2, or 3. There you go. You add all those tiles to your hand, and then you choose something. So yes, you're taking points, and that's bad, but ideally you can find something that will let you avoid those big numbers. So once you're in this row, eagles are hitting consecutively for everyone who plays in there. Once this row is active, you got a salt lick. Yay, everyone loves salt if they're an ibex. And as long as this row is active and a salt is visible, then you lose points instead of adding them to your score, which is great since you want the fewest points. So this is visible, it's still visible, and whoop, now points are bad again. They're going to add to your score. The rows wrap around, so if you finish this row or finish this row and this is occupied already, then jump back to the bottom and continue. One last thing. There are 2 marks on the score track called solitary ibex. Once a token has passed this space, the next round is played differently. You start with whoever has the fewest points. Let's say it's like this. So the blue player will play something face up. Everyone sees what they play. And then the yellow player goes, green player goes, and red player. Ideally, this red player can play safely and hit someone else, force them to score when they didn't want to score. They can still buy tiles if they want to give themselves greater odds of doing that. But it's a little catch-up mechanism so that people are punished in reverse order to their current score. If salt lick is active, red goes back, and then red crosses over again, or someone else crosses over again, you will do this again. Same thing with the 49. If someone has crossed over and then another player crosses over, you don't do it. You do it once for each number, but if you fall back and you're the only one who was above it, you would do it again. In this case, you don't do it because red's already here. You do it again. Okay. The game ends when, again, someone hits 60 or someone has emptied their hand of tiles and gets new tiles. I didn't mention that before. If you have played all of your tiles and you have nothing in front of you, you draw 6 tiles freely from the bag. Yay, that's great. You don't have to spend points to get tiles. You just have to empty your hand. But of course, as you get down with fewer and fewer tiles, you might have terrible options to play it and avoid getting penalized. So maybe you buy tiles. And now you have to, again, play them down. If you hit a penalty or you hit the penalty point here, you're going to collect 1 or 2 tiles. And so there you go into your hand. And now you have to spend down again. And ideally you get down to nothing and then draw 6 tiles for free. If You would have to draw 6 tiles for free, and the bag has fewer than 6 tiles, the game ends immediately. If the bag is getting low on tiles and you want to buy tiles, you would draw what's left from the bag, and then if you still want to buy tiles, you're going to choose at random from the tiles that have been discarded from the game. So might want to keep those face down, have them ready so that people can just draw them as they need them. Multiple players can buy tiles on a turn, so you might be dipping into those discarded tiles a lot. If multiple people want to buy in a turn, it's just whoever said they want to buy first, they spend their points and buy. And maybe if we're near the end of the game and yellow just bought some, well, now blue can buy some and they're still behind yellow. They're still in a favored position. Maybe they're going to win. Or if they're here and blue knows they're going to get penalized, they buy 3. To give them a chance. Well, maybe yellow also wants to spend to give them a chance. Who knows? Lots of little things happen at the end of the game for people in the chance to win, and other people, well, they're trying to save face or possibly just recover a little bit, maybe not come in last. That's all you want to do. But when the game ends, whoever has the fewest points wins. Now you know how to play Dance of Ibexes, which I played once on a review copy from Playte, but this is a new version of an older design. As with Expeditions, as with Big Boss, Wolfgang Kramer has designed a lot of games over the past 5 decades, and publishers keep bringing them back to market, licensing them again, usually overhauling the look of the game, sometimes tweaking the gameplay, but not necessarily. This is a new version of a game that first appeared in 2004 called Dance of Ibexes, with no gameplay changes. Still the same as this 20-year-old game. Now, this game is a board game version of Wolfgang Kramer's 6 Nimmt, which you might know as Take 5 or Slide 5, a card game that was published in 1994 that is probably Kramer's best-selling game. Incredibly consistent seller over 30 years. Amigo even has the 30th anniversary edition out in 2024. So 6 Nimmt works very similarly to Dance of Ibexes and Dance of Ibexes. You have a deck of cards. Each player plays a card simultaneously. They're placed into rows, just like tiles are placed into rows in these games. And whoever places the 6th card in a row takes the other 5 cards as punishment. And you want to have the fewest points. So try not to be the 6th card in the row. Gameplay is very similar, but it's different. There's a bit more going on here that make you play a bit differently. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Just want to mention as well, Amigo did come out with a different version of this in 2019 called 6 Nimmt Brettspiel. So it is smaller than the original game, but still fairly large. This one has some variants in it, so change of play styles. If you compare the size of these 3, look how compact Dance of Ibexes is. If you're looking for compactness, that's the one to go with. Why is it so compact? Well, let's open Dance of Ibexes. We got the rules here. Double fold board. And lots of empty space here. Because this is a standard box size that publishers use frequently. Don't recreate the box. Use a familiar box, because then you don't have to have a charge for having some custom box. Use something that's very familiar. It helps you in lots of different ways with manufacturing and shipping and setting expectations for what the price is going to be. It's a big game with a big board. So here you go. All right. So it works a little differently for the Playte one. Let me show you what happens when you actually open this up. To open Dance of Ibexes, lift the magnetic flap, which nicely keeps the box closed. The other part of the game board tucks inside this box, which is magnetized as well. Got the rules, a very small pamphlet, the tiles, the scoring markers, and you take those out. You have the score track on the other side of the box. So this is probably the most compact version that could exist. Admittedly, you do have chunky wood tiles, but they feel good and they stand up. Whereas the earlier versions, such as the 2004 edition, had cardboard tiles. You can see the numbers here. And each player would have a screen that you have to keep your tiles behind. It works, but again, it comes in a box like this with a board that, the box is that size pretty much for the board. If you could fold this board down, you can make a much smaller box, which is what they did with the 2019 edition. All right, we have this quad fold board, but it plays a little differently than the other game, right? Still the same idea where you're putting out tiles. You're going to get penalized, but your points can go positive or negative. Can't really see this. So on the track, there's a double-sided board. So it's the same but different. All right, I mentioned the 2019 version had some variants that use these action cards and use these luck cards, and there's bullheads on the tiles themselves. You again have screens so that you can keep your tile secret, but this is a larger box than what we have now in this edition. I've talked with Playte President Jung-hee Choi over the years, and he has said his goal is to make a package that is as small as possible. Presumably, you just, why waste space? Have everything more compact? Sometimes people are tight for space, of course, depending on what countries you live in, where you live, what sort of living space is available to you. You got to mush everything down a bit to make sure the tiles are flat. So maybe you don't like doing that, but otherwise, there we go. Tilt it a little so that the tiles slide out of the way. Now you can lower this and put this down in here. This is the same size box that Playte has used for a new edition of Pueblo, designed by Kramer and Kiesling, that also came in a giant box. This originally came in one of those giant square boxes, sort of Cosmos-sized, a little bit bigger actually. And now this new version, as you see, unplayed yet, but works the same way. The board turns into the container to keep everything in a tight space. Make room on your shelves. Now we can talk for a moment about the gameplay in Dance of Ibexes rather than the packaging. The gameplay is very familiar to 6 nimmt, or take 5, slide 5, whatever you want to call it. It's somewhat random because, of course, everyone is playing simultaneously. You may think that you are playing the ideal tile or card, depending on which game you're playing, and then other people slip their cards in. They have the numbers that fall between that gap, and suddenly, there you go. You got the penalties, you're pushed off the cliff, or you're the 6th card in the row. You thought it was good, and it's not. So that randomness happens in the game. But there's a bit more going on in Dance of Ibexes that I find people like this game where they might not like 6 nimmt. I've had plenty of people say they just find 6 nimmt completely random. They shuffle their cards and just play randomly, which seems a little disrespectful to the idea of the design. Like if you dislike it that much, maybe don't play or play something else, suggest something else, go get a drink while other people are playing. I don't know. Seems like you should fully participate rather than just become a robot, but maybe that's me. Now, Dance of Ibexes changes things a bit because whenever a player takes a row, they get 1 or 2 tiles. So now they have options on what to play. The other players have some idea of what they might have in hand, but that player gets options and their hand size changes. Whereas in 6 nimmt, you're just playing a card each round and that's it. You're done. So here things fluctuate a bit more. You can buy additional tiles to try to get out of a jam. If you have things that you think are only bad choices, you can take a little hit and maybe you'll get something better. At least you'll get more information. Maybe you draw the tile that you thought someone else would play and now you know that it's safe to play the one that you wanted to play. You have the change as well of playing 2 tiles at once. You have the change of losing points instead of gaining them. And when you're playing 2 tiles at once and you're losing points, sometimes scores just tank quickly. You can have a situation where people just get a high score and they have no chance of ever recovering. Even if they lose a few points, they're not nearly going to lose enough because the same person just gets hit over and over and over again. And that's bad, right? That makes it unfun for them. But ideally, the game will end quickly enough when they hit 60, and then you can play again or do something else. Maybe their luck will turn, or they'll make better choices. Because you are playing the odds. You do get to see the tiles that are out there, similar to 6 nimmt, but the rows are different sizes. There's a little bit more. It feels like there's more information because you see the tiles go into people's hands. You know that people are buying tiles, and so they probably don't have good choices. But what do they don't have good choices for, and so forth? It's just a little bit more going on that makes it different from 6 nimmt, which of course adds complications to the game and maybe reduces the audience because it takes a little more explanation to get into. But there you go. It has some differences to the gameplay. It's a solid design that works really well as long as you're up for some randomness. One little oddity with this version is it's labeled on the back 2 to 4 players, whereas Tanz der Hornachen was 2 to 8, and 6 nimmt Brettspiel was 2 to 6. There are 8 scoring pieces in this game, and I played with 5 players on the one game that I played on this. I've played, by the way, 6 times on this version on a purchase copy, 4 times on 6 nimmt Brettspiel on a review copy. So I played with 5 players on the assumption that it was, again, a 2 to 8 player game. It's labeled 2 to 4. There's 8 scoring pieces inside. I don't know whether the back is a mistake or the number of pieces is a mistake, or it's just choices of color so people can be the color of Ibex they want to be. Not sure. But it works really well at high numbers because it's more like a party feel. Because, right, terrible things are going to happen. Yeah, get to have fun. Sometimes you're the butt of the joke, right? Falling off the cliff, or, as in the original game, stepping in poop. It's good. It's got this party game feel in a board game, and now in a much smaller package. U.S. publisher 25th Century Games has licensed a number of titles from Playte and is bringing them to market. Circus Flaccati and Jalapeno, another Kramer design. What else? Vampire Queen, also Kramer, co-design, I believe, with Kiesling, or maybe Jalapeno was. In any case, 25th Century is bringing some Playte titles to market, and maybe other publishers will as well, or you'll find it at Spiel, you'll go to Korea, you'll find someone else who wants to import it. The game is out there, right? I want to talk about good games that are available, or sometimes bad games, but in this case, a good game. At least a game that I enjoy. It's good for me. Maybe it's good for you too.